When an 8-year-old boy stands up in court with a hidden recording that could change his mother's fate, a brutal custody battle turns into a fight for truth, courage, and survival. But as the courtroom holds its breath, no one is ready for what the child is about to reveal, not even his father. The courtroom was filled with a suffocating silence that made every breath feel loud and intrusive. I sat on the wooden bench, my heart pounding, my palms damp with fear. My son Zayden sat beside me, his small legs swinging aimlessly, but his face was older that day, as if the weight of the moment had stolen his childhood in minutes. He was only 8, but his posture was rigid, his lips pressed into a thin linea across. The room stood Damien, my ex-husband, with his lawyer. Damien wore the same smirk he always did when he believed he was in control. His eyes didn't meet mine. Instead, he nodded towards Zayden as if this entire custody hearing was just another business deal he was poised to win. Judge Callahan adjusted his glasses and flipped through a thick stack of papers, his face unreadable. Finally, he looked up and addressed Damien. "Mr. Carter, you are requesting a change in custody. You've stated that your son expressed a desire to live with you full-time. Is that correct?" Damien's nod was firm. "Yes, Your Honor. Zayden told me he feels unsafe in his current living situation and wants to live with me." I felt my stomach churn. My throat tightened as I glanced at Zayden. His hands were folded tightly in his lap, his eyes fixed on the floor. He didn't look scared, but there was a numbness about him, a quiet endurance that no 8-year-old should ever have to possess. I wanted to reach for him, to shield him from the suffocating weight of that courtroom. But my body was frozen. The judge's eyes softened as he turned to Zayden. "Son, is that true? Do you wish to live with your father?" The world paused. My heart, my breath, my hope, everything inside me stilled. I wanted to scream that it was wrong to make a child answer such a question in a room filled with strangers and pressure, but I said nothing. I waited. Zayden stood up slowly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into the pocket of his tiny gray jacket and pulled out an old phone. It was mine once, something I'd given him months ago to play games on. He held it up, his small fingers gripping it tightly. "May I play the recording from last night?" He asked. The courtroom shifted. Every pair of eyes turned to him. The murmurs ceased. Even Damien's confident facade faltered as he turned to look at Zayden. The judge leaned forward, curiosity and surprise flickering in his gaze. "Recording?" Zayden nodded. "Yes, sir. From my dad. Last night." The bailiff stepped forward, reaching for the phone, but Zayden didn't let go just yet. "I didn't know what to do," he said, his voice clear but quiet. "So I recorded it so someone would believe me." In that moment, everything changed. I knew something had happened, something I hadn't seen, something I hadn't been able to protect him from. And yet, my son, my brave little boy, had found a way to protect himself. He was standing up in front of a room full of strangers, his father, and a judge, ready to reveal the truth. Judge nodded, taking the phone gently from Zayden's hand. He looked at Damien, then at me, then back to Zayden. "You're sure you want to share this with the court?" Zayden nodded again. His resolve was unshaken. Damien's smirk had completely vanished. "No." The judge pressed play. At first, there was static, a low crackling hum that made the room hold its collective breath. Then, Damien's voice cut through, sharp and cold. "If you don't say you want to live with me, I swear I'll make sure your mother disappears. You understand me?" Gasps echoed in the courtroom. Whispers filled the air, but no one dared to speak too loudly. My heart clenched as Zayden's voice followed, small and trembling, yet brave. "But I want to stay with Mommy." Damien's voice snapped back, harsher now. "That's not your choice. You're just a kid. Say what I told you, or things are going to get worse for her." The weight of those words filled the courtroom like a dense fog. Damien's lawyer turned to him, disbelief painted across his face. Damien's posture had shifted, his once confident frame now slumped, his complexion pale. Judge Callahan didn't rush. He played the recording again, letting every word sink deeper. When it ended, He removed his glasses, folded his hands, and stared directly at Damien. "Mr. Carter, is that your voice?" Damien opened his mouth, but only silence escaped at first. Then he muttered, "It sounds like it." The judge's voice grew firmer. "Did you threaten your son last night?" Damien glanced at his lawyer, searching for a lifeline, but none. The judge turned to me. "Miss Ray, has your son expressed concerns for his safety before this?" I nodded, my throat dry. "He has, Your Honor, especially after visits with his father. He stopped sleeping. He would ask me if people would believe the truth." Judge Callahan leaned back, tapping the phone gently against his desk. "Court will recess for 15 minutes. The gavel struck, and the room shifted back into motion. Lawyers whispered urgently. People filed out into the hallway. But I remained still, my legs numb. Zayden's small hand found mine. His grip was tight, but his gaze was steady. "You recorded that?" I whispered. He'd nodded, his voice barely audible. I didn't know if they'd believe me, but I thought maybe they'd believe him. Evelyn approached us, crouching beside Zayden. Her voice was warm, her eyes filled with pride. "You raised a brave boy, Marley." When the court resumed, the air was heavier, charged with a different kind of silence. The judge's face was resolute as he addressed the courtroom. "I have reviewed the recording multiple times," he began, "and there is no question regarding its authenticity. Mr. Carter, your words and your intent were clear. You threatened a child to manipulate the outcome of this hearing." Damien sat motionless, the weight of his actions collapsing onto him. "This is not just a violation of this court's expectations. It is a gross abuse of parental influence," the judge continued, his tone sharper. "No, when he turned his gaze to Zayden, his voice softened. "Young man, what you did today took immense courage. A courtroom is a daunting place for anyone, let alone a child. You stood up for the truth. You should be proud." Zayden didn't say anything. He just nodded, his hand still holding onto mine. "Given the evidence presented," the judge continued, "I am denying Mr. Carter's request for custody, effective immediately. All visitation rights are suspended pending a full psychological evaluation and parenting education program. This ruling is final until further review. Any future contact will be at the discretion of this court." Damien exhaled sharply, slumping back into his chair. Defeated, the judge banged his gavel. "Court is adjourned." People began to move, conversations buzzing back to life, but I stayed seated, overwhelmed by the enormity of the moment. Zayden turned to me, his eyes searching for reassurance. "You were so brave," I whispered. "I'm proud of you. You didn't have to do that, but you did." He looked up at me with a quiet strength. "I just wanted them to know the truth. I didn't want you to get hurt." My heart swelled with pride and broke all over again. Evelyn met us in the hallway, arms wide open. Zayden ran to her, and she wrapped him in a hug so full of love that it seemed to lift all of us off the floor. As we stepped outside, the sunlight hit our faces, warm and bright, like the world had shifted with us. Zayden looked up at me, his face relaxed, his eyes reflecting the boy I knew, the boy who laughed at silly cartoons and begged for extra syrup on his pancakes. The fear that had shadowed him was gone. The ride home was quiet, but it was a peaceful silence this time. Zayden sat in the back seat, his seatbelt snug, his hands folded calmly in his lap. He wasn't gripping the phone anymore. He didn't need to. When we got home, Evelyn had already warmed up a pot of chicken soup. She didn't say anything as we entered. She just hugged us both, kissed Zayden's forehead, and handed me a warm bowl. It was her silent way of saying, "You're safe now." Later that night, as I tucked Zayden into bed, he looked up at me, his voice hesitant. "Am I in trouble?" "No, baby," I said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "You're not in trouble. You told the truth, and that is never wrong." He hesitated. "Will Daddy be mad?" I paused, brushing his hair back. "He might be, but what he did was wrong. What you did was right. Being mad at the truth doesn't make it less true." He nodded, rolling onto his side. I sat with him until his breathing softened into sleep. I watched his chest rise and fall, steady and peaceful, a rhythm I would never take for granted again. In the weeks that followed, Damien tried to reach out. His lawyer called twice, but I directed them to the court order and hung up. I wasn't afraid anymore. The fear had been replaced with something far stronger. Resolvezidin started smiling more. He asked to ride his bike again. He returned to his Saturday waffle routine and sneaked whipped cream from the fridge when he thought I wasn't looking. He talked about school, about his friend's weird haircut, and about how he wanted to be an astronaut or maybe a video game. Designaron evening, while we were doing dishes, he said, "I think I want to be a lawyer." I laughed. "You'd be a great one." He grinned. "They listen to people who tell the truth, right?" I put the dish towel down and pulled him close. "Yes. And the best ones protect people who need to be heard." That night, I opened a journal I hadn't touched in years. On a blank page, I wrote, "My son saved us." Not with anger, not with revenge, with truth. He reminded me that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's a small, steady voice saying what needs to be said at exactly the right moment. Sidin didn't just help the court see the truth. He helped me see myself again. Strong, capable, not broken, not helpless. I had survived the storm, but he had walked through it beside me. And in the end, he was the one who stood up. This wasn't just a custody battle. It was about truth, courage, and an 8-year-old boy who chose to be brave when it mattered most. That day, the court heard his voice, but more importantly, Zayden heard it too, and he believed it.